solid talaga yung speech dito ni Kaufman, and ang galing-galing talaga niya dito. Naipakita niya talaga dito sa mga hudas na ito na ang isang kaso, kailangan mo ng matibay na ebidensya. Hindi pa pwedeng testimonya lang, hindi pa pwedeng post lang sa Facebook, hindi pa pwedeng kukunin mo, i-chachap-chapin mo yung video, tapos pag didikit-dikitin mo, gagawin mong mukhang umaamin si Pangulong Duterte sa mga kasalanan niya. Kung umaamin si Pangulong Duterte sa mga kasalanan niya, sana ginamit yan dito sa Pilipinas. Ang lakas naman palang ebidensya niyan eh. Kung malakas na ebidensya yan, dapat ginamit nila sa Pilipinas. Meron bang kaso si Pangulong Duterte sa Pilipinas? Ni isa, wala. Si Leila de Lima, ang tagal. Si Leila de Lima, ang tagal-tagal na namuno sa Department of Justice, naging Commission on Human Rights pa, naging senador pa, putang ina, nakapagsampa siya kahit isang kaso kay Pangulong Duterte. Ang tagal-tagal niya nang nag-iimbestiga. Umamin mismo siya sa may Senate, doon sa Senado. Under oath, umamin siya eh. Tinanong siya ni Jinggoy o sa tagal-tagal mo, Commission on Human Rights chairwoman ka, DOJ ka pa, naging senador ka pa, nakapag-file ka kahit isa na kaso kay Pangulong Duterte? Wala. Uy, gago pala kayo eh. Tangina ninyo, bintang kayo ng bintang tapos hindi kayo nagsasampa ng kaso. Kaya nga ang tapang-tapang ni Pangulong Duterte na umamin eh. Umaamin na nga siya para lang mag-file kayo ng kaso sa kanya dito sa Pilipinas, tapos nag-file kayo ng kaso sa ibang bansa, kung di ba naman kayo mga gago? Ina ninyo. Di kayo mananalo sa amin sa argumentuhan. Di kayo mananalo sa amin. Walang jurisdiction ng ibang lahi. May sarili tayong korte, may sarili tayong soberanya, may sarili. Di ba? Ayaw nyo nga mawala yung South China Sea sa inyo, tapos papayag kayo na yung mga korte natin, mas magaling yung korte ng ibang bansa, at ang tinatry dyan, kalahi nyo. Tanginan nyo, sana mangyari yan sa inyo balang araw. Sana mangyari yan sa inyo balang araw. Tapos, tatanungin namin sa inyo, masaya? Okay yun, no? O, nagbigay kayo ng presidency. O, sino pa bang mga wanted sa mundo? Wanted si Putin, wanted si Netanyahu. Nandito ba ngayon? Wala. Bakit? Hindi sila binibigay ng mga bansa nila kasi hindi traidor yung bansa nila sa sariling lahi. Whether dilawan yan, pulahan, pinklawan, kung ano man yan, lahing Pilipino yan, hindi yan dapat pinupunta rito. Kung si Bongbong Marcos, i-ICC, hindi rin ako papayag. Huwag kang pumayag ICC. Dito mo ikulong yan. Pahirapan mo dito yung hayop na yan. May batas tayo rito eh. Yun na mga gago. Pakinggan nyo. Ang ganda ng sinabi dito ni Kaufman. Congratulations and thank you, Kaufman, for fighting for our president.
For his intervention. But I feel that I ought to remind him that this is a court of law which decides matters on the basis of evidence, not on the basis of political demagoguery, and not on the basis of a desire to effect regime change despite the democratic will. And certainly not on the basis of statements made by Ombudsman Jesus Crispin Remula, who professed that domestic justice will be denied, according to Mr. Butuyan, because of the lack of forensic reports and police reports. Now, I don't know which case Mr. Butuyan's metaphorical ship sailed into, but he clearly hasn't read the evidence. Whilst he was speaking, we examined the evidence, and out of that evidence we found at least 35 reports substantiating 49 of the incidents which are mentioned in the document containing the charges. Your Honours, Rodrigo Duterte...
Diba, meron lang silang istorya, meron lang silang mga akusasyon, but they cannot back it up with evidence. Wala. Oo, walang ebidensya. Puro istorya. Puro papogi lang. Sabi ko nga sa inyo, kung maraming ebidensya itong mga to, noon pa may kaso na si Pangulong Duterte sa Pilipinas. 2 years, 3 years na siyang hindi presidente, hindi na siya immune to any suit or any case sa Pilipinas. Kasi kapag ikaw presidente, immune ka sa lahat ng or sa mga kaso. But if you're not president anymore, wala ka ng tawag dito, wala ka ng blanket. Dapat nagsampa na sila ng kaso kay Pangulong Duterte. Pero hindi Bakit hindi sila nagsampa? Wala sila ebidensya Alam nila na sa mga prosecutors pa lang dito sa atin, pag nagsampa sila ng kaso, hahanapan na sila ng ebidensya. Kwento lang meron sila Wala rin.
Duterte was and will always remain a unique phenomenon. His style of statesmanship was novel and unpalatable to many. His expletives and hyperbole grated, while his honesty and wild popularity irritated. He spoke openly, from the heart, sincerely and truthfully. And what a contrast between him and his successor in the Malacanang. For President Rudy, his word was his word, and the people knew it. For President Bongbong, his word is for the wind, and the people will not forget it. Let me remind everyone of the letter which President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. signed, it's on the screen, and in which he gave a cast-iron undertaking that his government, and I quote, will not assist the ICC in any way, shape, or form.
Ito, maganda tong pinakita to ni Kaufman. Ang pinatutunayan ni Kaufman dito, wala naman talagang problema kay Pangulong Duterte. Kaaway lang talaga niya yung presidente. Why? Nung hindi pa galit yung presidente sa kanya, may sinabi siya na hindi sila mag-a-assist sa ICC in any shape or form. Pero pinadala nila si Pangulong Duterte dyan. Anong ibig sabihin nun? Nung bati pa sila, hindi siya pa mag-cooperate, pero nung binabatikos na sila, ipinadala nila doon yung matanda. So ano ito? Political. Oh, so ito, dito pa lang tapos na kayo eh. Tapos na kayo dito. Even the Department of Justice, naglabas sila ng statement na we will not cooperate with ICC. Tapos the very same people, yung nagpadala sa kanya doon, si Boying Rimulya. Oh, dito pa lang, tapos na boxing eh. Oh, kung ako ang judge, sasabihin ko na, oo nga naman, bakit siya nangako na hindi niya ipapadala dito, tapos pinadala niya eventually? Bakit? Ibig sabihin, tarantado yung presidente ng Pilipinas. Wala sa sariling katinuan. Hindi siya mapagkakatiwalaan. O magkakampi ba to sa ano? Ba't ba galit na galit yung presidente? O ba't ba siya pinadala? Ano bang history ng dalawa na to? Kung aalamin nyo lang, makikita nyo eh. Ganun ba? So ito si Pangulong Duterte, binabatikos itong si Bongbong dahil addict daw. Binabatikos dahil mga magnanakaw sila. Aba, kaya naman pala pinatapon yan dito. Ba't natin tinanggap? Away nila sa politika doon tapos tatanggapin natin dito? Anong klaseng korte itong ICC na to? 'Di ba? Ginawa lang kayong tool. Ginamit lang kayo ni Bongbong Marcos at nagpagamit naman kayo para yung kalaban niya sa politika at yung bumabati ko sa kanya mawala sa landas niya. Putsang ina niyan. Puti, uutusan ng unggoy, labo.
Well, as we know, he failed to keep that promise. Rodrigo Duterte was unconstitutional and unceremoniously hauled off to The Hague. And when called upon to defend his master's actions and the said letter at a Senate committee hearing, the then Secretary for Justice, once again Mr. Jesus Crispin Remula, persisted with the same dishonest theme. And I quote his words, "We did not assist the ICC. We continue with the very tenor of the letter that we did not assist the ICC and we did not have any contact with them." So he said, but with a document emanating from the prosecution team opposite and disclosed to us a mere week ago, not as information material to the preparation of our defence, but as exonerating evidence, we can now substantiate what we have suspected for a long time. The document comprises a transcript of a telephone call covertly recorded between four parties who cannot be mentioned in public, and one of these parties was boasting about how he was acting as the silent partner of President BBM, managing a scheme to funnel witnesses to this court while all the time ensuring that he could guarantee President BBM's plausible deniability. So it is indeed the defence case that President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. set out to neutralise Rodrigo Duterte and his legacy. Yes, Mr. Deputy Prosecutor, I used that legendary word, neutralise, so central and so essential to your case theory, because you know just as well as me that I'm using the term metaphorically. And now I turn to the substance of the charges, but before I do, a word or two about the geopolitical context. The scourge of illegal narcotics is not unique to the Philippines. As we all know, it afflicts Latin America, where I can name 3 countries where the death rate at the hands of vigilantes and law enforcement agents per capita population is higher than it ever was under Duterte. And as you should know, and you will hear from the prosecution, at any rate, the Philippines as a country is uniquely positioned to act as a transit hub for the trafficking of narcotics emanating from the cartels in China. And with or without Duterte, so we argue, the death rate would have kept on rising. Indeed, as we will prove with statistics and reports, the death rate flowing from narcotics-related crime actually increased after Rodrigo Duterte left power. And where, I ask you, has the International Criminal Court...
That's a fact. Hindi ninyo maitatago yan. Na during Pangulong Duterte's time, napakababa ng insidente ng mga droga sa Pilipinas. Pero nung nawala siya, sobrang dami ng nahuhuling droga sa Pilipinas. Ibig sabihin, nawala na yung kinakatakutan nila. Nawala yung kinakatakutan nila. At saka noon, ang namamatay, ang namamatay noon, yung mga adik. Ngayon, ang mga namamatay, yung biktima na ng adik. So, saan tayo? Ikaw, Pilipino ka, tatanungin kita, saan ka? Doon ka sa mamamatay, pumapatay ng ng inosente, o doon ka sa ang mamatay ay yung yung mga kriminal. Mamili ka. Mamili ka. Doon ka sa sa ang namamatay inosente o ang namamatay kriminal. Mamili ka, ilagay mo dyan sa comment section kung ano pipiliin mo. Significant yun, yung pagtaas ng krimen, significant yung pagtaas ng nahuhuling droga, pumapasok na droga galing sa ibang bansa. Kasi nga, hindi sila takot. Paano sila matatakot? Sabi nung kapatid ng presidente, addict mismo yung presidente. Dapat nga, sinabi mo dyan, Kaufman kasi ito si Pangulong Duterte, sinabi mo dyan, si Pangulong Duterte kasi galit sa addict ito. Kaya dahil addict yung presidente ng Pilipinas, sabi mismo nung kapatid niya, kaya itong galit sa addict, ipinatapon sa ibang bansa. So ngayon, tayo dito sa ICC, isang question lang, sa kanino tayo makikinig? Sa addict o yung galit sa addict? Dapat ganun ang sinabi ni Kaufman dito di ba? Pro-drug lord ba tayo o anti-drug lord? Paki-klaro nga, dapat ganoon niya
Being said that Rodrigo did anything. The totally lawful Duterte campaign against illegal drugs and their suppliers took place when his administration was after the declaration of martial law. And it was on that significant day that Rodrigo Duterte was exposed to the tyranny of oppression and the abuse of power by the elite. And he took a decision. On that day, he chose to devote himself to a life of selfless public service. As a professor at the local police academy and as a public prosecutor in Davao, Rodrigo Duterte developed a lifelong passion, some would say an enduring obsession, for law and order, something for which he unapologetically enforced throughout his time as mayor of Davao City. Not as the prosecution say, through sowing murder and mayhem, but through winning the love, respect and admiration of his fellow citizens, the very same citizens who continued to re-elect him time after time, term after term, on no less than 7 occasions over more than 2 decades.
Yes! Yan yung magandang sinabi dito ni Kaufman. Si Pangulong Duterte, binoboto hanggang maging presidente. Si Inday Sara ganun din. Si Basti Duterte ganun din. Binoboto sila ng binoboto, ibig sabihin gusto sa kanila ng tao. Meron ka bang narinig na barangay chairman ng isang barangay sa probinsya na yan namatay? Dahil natalo si Pangulong Duterte sa barangay na yun? Wala. Ang naririnig mo lang na namamatay dyan sa Davao, puro kriminal. Walang iba. Walang matinong tao na matay dyan. Puro kriminal. Rapist ng bata, magnanakaw, pusher, kidnapper. Ganun ang mga namatay dyan. Anong problema doon? Kailangan naman talaga mamatay ang mga yan. Ayop naman talaga. Binoboto sila ng tao. Tingnan ninyo yung politika sa Ilocos. Tingnan ninyo yung politika sa Ilocos Sur na lang. Let's say for example Ilocos Sur. Alam ninyo may mga kwento yung matanda. Kasi taga Ilocos kami. May mga kwento yung mga matanda dyan. na ito daw si Crisologo noon, yung Crisologo na tatay ni Bingbong Crisologo, yung matandang Crisologo at saka daw itong si Chavit Singson, ano yan? So ano yan? Parang ang sinasabi ng mga matatanda noon, hitman daw nito ni Crisologo si Chavit Singson. Si Crisologo daw, pag tumakbo yan sa eleksyon at natalo siya sa barangay na ito, patay yung barangay chairman dyan. Kaya nga nagkaroon ng issue noon na sinunog yung isang barangay ni Bingbong Crisologo, kung matatandaan ninyo Kasama si Chavit Singson doon noon sinunog daw yung lugar na yon because putya yan. Natalo daw si Crisologo Sr. doon sa pagka gobernador yata, o may gobernador ng buong Ilocos Sur. So ganun noon, itong panahon ni Chavit Singson, ang ginawa, ito yung istorya, hindi ko masasabing totoo ito, pero ito yung umiikot na istorya noon. Yun daw, Crisologo, pinatay yun sa simbahan. Ang dumedo daw sa kanya, yung mismong hitman niya. Sino yung hitman niya? Si Chavit daw yun. Tapos ngayon, kasi nga, ako rin naman ang pumapatay sa lahat ng mga ng mga kalaban mo. Bakit hindi na lang kita patayin? Ako na lang ang boss. Tama naman yung naisip niya, naging siya yung boss. Alam nyo ba nung panahon daw nung si Chavit? Dito istorya lang to Hindi to pwedeng hindi totoo, pwedeng totoo, pero istorya lang to. Noon daw panahon na si Chavit daw ay ang lakas-lakas pa sa Ilocos Sur. Ganyan din daw ang ginawa niya. Kapag ikaw pag natalo daw siya sa isang barangay, yari. Kaya yung barangay chairman, nagtatago sa bundok, hinahanap nila yun pag natalo sila dyan, pag kalaban nila. Ganun. Walang ganyan sa Davao. Walang ganyan. Yung mga Singson, may mga kalaban sa Ilocos Sur? Wala. Yung mga Marcos, may kalaban sa Ilocos Norte? Sila lang, naglalaban-laban. Pero may ibang lahi na kalaban sila? Wala. Kaya nagkakaroon ng dynasty sa mga lugar na yan dahil mga berdugo yan. Ngayon, ito, sabi ko nga sa inyo, alam to ng mga matatanda. Wag ka na magalit, Manong Chavit. Hindi ka naman dinimanda pero yan yung istorya na mga naririnig ko. Maliit pa ako, hanggang ngayon, malaki na ako. Yan yung mga istorya na naririnig ko. Kasi normal naman yung ganyang klase ng politika sa Pilipinas. Patayan talaga. Hindi lang naman dyan sa Ilocos, sa Nueva Ecija, dyan sa Mindanao. Ganyan din naman. Wala kang narinig na kalaban ng mga Duterte dyan na namatay. Yung mga Nograles, for the longest time, kalaban nila yung mga Nograles. May nangyari masama sa Nograles? Di ba? Kung mamamatay tao si Pangulong Duterte, lagi niyong ilagay sa isip niyo yan, kung mamamatay tao si Pangulong Duterte, do you think yung mga masamang sinasabi sa kanya ni Nograles, binuhay niya pa yan? Di ba? Kung sarantado yan, pinatay niya na yung Nograles na yan. Di ba? Kung tarantado yan, si Pangulong Duterte, yung isa pang nakalaban niya na for mayor dyan sa Davao, pinatay niya na sana yan. Sino ba mga nangangamatay dyan? Ang nangangamatay dyan, yung mga kriminal, mga kalaban nila sa politika for the longest time. Sabi ko sa inyo, binababoy ng mga Nograles sa mga Duterte. May nakurot? Meron bang binaril na Nograles ever? May namatay na Nograles at pinatay ng any of the Dutertes? Ang liit-liit ng pamilya ng mga Duterte dyan sa Davao. Ang liit ng pamilya. Ilan lang anak ni Pangulong Duterte? 4. Ilan ang anak ni Pulong? Ilan ang anak ni Inday? Ilan ang anak ni Baste? Ilan pang mga Duterte ang kilala ninyo? Puro babae. So, ibig sabihin, hindi rin sila nagbuo ng dynasty dyan. Tao ang may gusto sa kanila dyan. Wala silang pinatay na political opponent. Yun ang mga kriminal. So, yung mga namatay dyan sa lugar nila, lahat yan, mga magnanakaw, mga sindikato, yun. Ang tanga-tanga nyo naman. Buti sana kung, tingnan ninyo, yung lumaban kay Pangulong Duterte, namatay bigla-bigla. Wala namang ganun. Noong panahon ni Pangulong Duterte, tingnan ninyo, noong panahon ni Pangulong Duterte bilang presidente, sinasabi nyo mamamatay tao siya. Sinisiraan siya nila Jober Laurio, kung sino-sino pang mga dilawang ulol na sinisiraan siya. Bakit buhay sila? Ni kaso wala sila. Ibig sabihin, si Pangulong Duterte hindi siya abusado sa mga bumabatikos lang sa kanya. Kung ikaw kriminal ka, addict ka, rapist ka, puta, patay ka talaga sa kanya at wala kang karapatang mabuhay. Wala kang karapatang mabuhay. Pero the fact that Pangulong Duterte, may namatay bang kritiko si Pangulong Duterte noon? Hindi katulad nito ni Percy Lapid kay Bongbong Marcos. Pag-upo niya, ano nangyari? Namatay si Percy Lapid. Numero 1 yun na binabatikos nun si Bongbong Marcos. May ganun ba nangyari nung panahon ni Pangulong Duterte? Wala naman, di ba? So, ibig sabihin, hindi siya mamamatay tao. Ang mamamatay tao, putyang ina, gusto niyan pumapatay araw-araw. Nagiging yung mga ganyan yung mga serial killer. Sinasabi niyo libo-libo pinatay ni Pangulong Duterte, di serial killer na siya niyan. Bakit walang namatay ni isa sa mga kalaban niya? Ang namatay yung mga kriminal lang. Takinan niyo, bobo kayo.
And throughout his 20 or so years tenure as the mayor of Davao, Rodrigo Duterte and his family transformed that city from an outpost of communist insurgency and criminal violence into what is now one of the safest cities, not just in the Philippines, but in the entire world. This was indeed the so-called Davao model, which the prosecution wants to persuade you was code for unbridled criminal violence. And this was the type of leader that the Filipino nation wanted in 2016. So, Rodrigo Duterte was elected into power not in spite of, but specifically because of his firm and uncompromising commitment to upholding law and order. And after his election as president, Rodrigo Duterte remained a man of the people without seeking to patronize the people. Gung-ho in his ways and with a belligerent tone, he spoke the tough tongue of the street, not the dissembling discourse of international diplomacy. He said what the people wanted to hear, but he said it in a way that offended sensibilities of world leaders unaccustomed to hearing it, one in particular, and that was what set him on the slippery slope to a prison cell in The Hague. And let me tell you how it works. It starts with the media, controlled by the powerful and the politically influential. With a sensational headline and a twisted editorial slant, the moguls sell their papers while promoting the partisan agenda of their backers in power. They highlight the salacious content while ignoring the true context, because that is what captivates the reader. And so it was with Rodrigo Duterte, whose speeches were fertile fodder for his enemies and detractors. A man whose hyperbole, bluster and rhetoric, once published, became a natural target for privately funded NGOs and human rights activists, a loose collective more commonly known as civil society. These people descended upon the Philippines to advance an agenda even more lacking in objectivity than that of the media, and heavily funded by tycoons with even grander designs, they print their glossy reports, replete with iconic photographic images of grieving families and dead bodies in rain-swept, nighttime crime scenes, all dramatically illuminated with the fluorescent glow of neon. Images carefully crafted to shock the conscience and to sway the emotions, and, I may say, to be used by the prosecutor when they don't even relate to the charges. And they gave their slick reports bold titles lifted straight out of a James Bond movie, such as License to Kill, One Shot to the Head, You Can Die Any Time, or simply, They Just Kill. The photographers are fated and their shots exhibited as art all over the world, and the brave journalists who act as their sources win awards and Nobel Prizes. And slowly but surely, their narrative becomes the sacred, unchallengeable and unshakable truth. And so the pressure builds up, and the academics who haunt the corridors of the progressive left law faculties far away in the United States tweet their research and publish their articles pontificating about crimes against humanity, systematic attacks against the civilian population, and they point their finger at one man alone, and bandy about slogans such as accountability and the prevention of impunity. They give their gratuitous advice on what should be done, sometimes academics who formerly worked alongside the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court. Communications and complaints are filed, and the rest, as they say, is history. In any event, we're not gathered here today to judge a man on the basis of his coarse attitude or his vulgar language. This court has convened a confirmation hearing to verify whether substantial grounds exist to believe that Rodrigo Duterte, the people's president, together with various so-called co-perpetrators, over the years of his governance, devised a criminal policy of wholesale and wanton murder. And since we are in a court of law, it is worth stressing, although I should not have to, cases are decided on the basis of evidence, not supposition, not rumour, not spicy gossip, and certainly not on the basis of political rhetoric and bluster. Because at the end of the day, were it not for those belligerent and controversial speeches, there would have been no impetus to bring the People's President to The Hague. And when the prosecution's evidence is examined, I would ask you to keep an open mind and to question not just whether that evidence has been selectively presented, but whether there exists evidence which the prosecution has failed to produce. And I say this with justifiable cause, particularly with respect to the Duterte rhetoric, as we will prove during the substantive part of our submissions. The notorious speeches on which the prosecution relies have been cherry-picked to suit its narrative, while ignoring the many other speeches when the former president tempered his bombastic language by clear reference to the principle of lawful self-defense. We, the defense, have read as many of these speeches as we can find. In fact, in our poky little office on the top floor of the furthest building away in this complex, we have a counter which ticks and ticks. And whenever we come across a speech which contradicts the prosecution's murder theory by reference to self-defense, we give a cheer, and the counter goes up once more, and we celebrate one more nail in the coffin of the prosecution's case theory. As the statistics stand as of today, in contrast to the 20 speeches on which the prosecution relies to prove incitement to kill, we have found 35 more which say the complete opposite. Let me give you two examples from the very speeches that the Deputy Prosecutor himself cited today. Let's refer first of all to the famous Pietà speech, which the Deputy Prosecutor referred to. So, this is what the Deputy Prosecutor said. Those of you who are still sober, those who haven't tried illegal drugs, if you don't want to die or get hurt, don't rely on the priests, including human rights advocates. They won't be able to prevent deaths, and so it goes on. But if we look further on in the very same speech, something which maybe the Deputy Prosecutor didn't do, this is what he had to say. To our police officers and other officials, do your job, and you will have the unwavering support of the Office of the President. I will be with you all the way. Abuse your authority, and there will be hell to pay, for you will have become worse than criminality itself. Well, there you are. You have it straight in your face. PECSO, exonerating evidence within what is claimed to be the prosecution incriminating evidence.
Diba? Kasi ang hilig, gawain ito ng mga dilawan mga komunista. Propaganda lang yan Kukuha sila, tapos kukuha sila ng maikli. May sinabi kang, haba-haba nung sinabi mo, pero kukunin lang nila yung maikli, yung maling sinabi mo. Yung maling sinabi mo, hindi naman siya mali kung kompleto yung pinakinggan. Kaya lang, halimbawa, yun nga sinasabi ko, marami na akong pinatay na kalapate. O, di ba? So, yun lang kinuha nila. Marami na akong pinatay. So, pag pinresent mo yun, ngayon mo lang narinig, hindi mo naman kilala si Duterte. Hindi mo naman alam na nagjo-joke lang si Duterte, maniniwala ka. Kaya lang, pag pinakinggan mo ng buo, pag pinakita na ni Kaufman yung buong mga speeches na yan, sa liigan tama ng prosecution. Bakit? Nagjo-joke Yung tumatawa yung mga tao, nag-cheer yung mga tao Tingnan mo, nung minumura niya yung ICC, anong reaksyon ng mga tao? Nagbuba, boo! Hindi naman. Nung minura niya ICC nasa Hong Kong, nag-cheer yung mga tao So, ibig sabihin, ang mga tao gusto kung anuman ang ginagawa ni Pangulong Duterte. Ngayon, kung kriminal siya at pinipili pa rin namin siya, problema na namin yun. Parang halimbawa, ito si Bongbong, ang laki ng problema namin kay Bongbong. Sinusumbong ba namin sa inyo? Hindi. We are dealing it by ourselves. Kami yung nagsasuffer. Nagsasuffer ba kayo sa katarantaduhan nito ni Bongbong ngayon? Hindi. Are you calling him out? Hindi, kasi wala kayong pakialam sa Pilipinas Bakit biglang ngayon may pakialam kayo kay Duterte? Tarantado pala kayo Yan yung sinasabi natin. Ito yung sinasabi ni Kaufman na kung ganito yung style niya and turned off kayo or hindi okay sa palate ninyo, panlasa ninyo, hindi naman nyo siya presidente, pakialam nyo. Kung doon sa Pilipinas, ganyan ang pinagsasasabi niya, papatayin ko lahat ng kriminal, binoto pa rin siya ng 16 million, ibig sabihin, okay yun sa mga tao doon. Ba't natin pinakikialaman? Gago pala kayo eh.
I won't take up my time by showing you the second speech, but there is one. If I have time at the end, I will show it to you. So if you add to that another 10 speeches out of the 20 speeches on which the prosecution rely in its document containing the charges, after all, we are in a court of law and we rely on evidence. And what is the evidence that's produced of these speeches? 20 of them. 10 of them, I submit, and we will show this in the substantive part of our submissions, contain exonerating evidence which support the defence case theory. In other words, if you add the 10, which we've identified in the prosecution's 20, to our total of 35, we come to 45 speeches versus 10, which we say support the use of force only in self-defence. That is 350% more speeches in favour of our defence and 354% more reasons not to confirm the charges. And you can bet your bottom dollar that at the end of today's proceedings, either the victim's self-styled legal assistant to ICC counsel or a prosecution intern will be tasked with scouring the web looking for the means to prove Kaufman wrong. And I will declare it, and I'll declare it loudly and clearly, as if the prosecution didn't know it already. It's not enough to state that since the former president made those extremely inflammatory statements and deaths occurred, that he must, as a matter of course, be criminally responsible for those fatalities. At this stage of the proceedings, the prosecution needs to show substantial grounds to believe that the former president actually desired and foresaw that people would be killed as a result of his incendiary language. For the prosecution to assert that Rodrigo Duterte hoped for deaths to occur or was recklessly indifferent as to whether deaths would occur, which he was not, that's insufficient. So once more for the record, Rodrigo Duterte's language was aimed not at suspected drug pushers as the prosecution would have it, but directly at those poisoning society with their substances, and not, I stress, with lethal intent. His rhetoric was calculated to arouse fear and obedience, to instill fear in their hearts, and to inculcate a respect for the law in their minds. Nothing more, nothing less. That was his intent, and it was not criminal. And as many of these drug pushers demanded to enter prison, I remember seeing the images on the television, lining up to surrender and to enter prison. Now, I challenged my colleagues opposite to prove otherwise.
Yun.
As we all know,
Isang malaking yung galing ni Kaufman dito. Isang malaking bagay yun. Maraming sumuko. How many died in the war on drugs and how many surrendered? Napuno yung mga nun. Hindi nyo kayang yun. The reason why you put or you filed cases against Pangulong Duterte here in ICC, it's because yung ICC walang knowledge tungkol doon. Dito sa Pilipinas, pag final mo yung case na yan, alam ng mga judges, alam ng mga Pilipino, alam ng mga pulis kung anong nangyari nung panahon nung ni Pangulong Duterte. The very reason why wala siyang kaso dito sa Pilipinas, it's because ang hirap-hirap patunayan yan dahil alam ng tao yung nangyari sa Pilipinas. And the reason why they took their chances in The Hague, it's because yung mga nasa Hague walang alam tungkol sa Pilipinas. So pag sinabi sa Hague na ganito, yun na yung iisipin nila. Kung ano yung huling narinig nila, yun na yung iisipin nila. Pero kung ikaw, huwis ka dito sa Pilipinas, personally, alam mo kung ano yung nangyari rito sa Pilipinas, you'll understand and you'll know na itong mga pinagsasabi nyo, kailangan nyo na ebidensya, ipakita yan. Hindi pwedeng news clip, hindi pwedeng chop-chop videos ni Pangulong Duterte na inaamin niya na may kasalanan siya. Una sa lahat, sabi ko nga sa inyo, kung may isang pinatay, kailangan yung ebidensya mo nakaugnay doon sa taong mismo na yun. Hindi pwedeng CCTV footage ng ibang namatay ng ibang taong namatay yung gagamitin mo para dito sa tao na ito. Specific yung yung mga ebidensya na dapat na ipakita mo that this person really died extrajudicially at inutos ng presidente. Kailangan narinig mo na sinabi ng presidente na yung pangalan ng tao, halimbawa si J. Guevara, patayin mo si J. Guevara, tas bukas namatay si J. Guevara, yun. Pero sinabi ko, patayin ko lahat ng kriminal. O, tapos namatay yung mga kriminal. Ay, kriminal nga eh. Inan yan. Anong doon? Anong masama doon? Sabi nga nung mga ibang lahi eh, ngayon lang ako nakarinig na isang presidente, bawal niyang takutin yung mga kriminal. Kasi parang gano'n ang sinasabi nitong mga peking human rights advocate na ito eh.
In a criminal process, the burden of proof is on the prosecution. They brought this case and they need to prove it. Rodrigo Duterte need not convince the world of anything, and that is to his fortunate advantage given his current medical condition. He stands behind his legacy resolutely, and he maintains his innocence absolutely. Now, I turn to the general fairness and objectivity of the investigation, which, as we all know, is meant to be an impartial evidence-gathering exercise. As an ex-prosecutor myself, I'm used to investigating agencies, pursuing all reasonable lines of inquiry, assimilating all testimonies, and digesting all documentation and forensic evidence, recommending who to target for prosecution, but not so with this prosecution. When we, the defence, study the course of the investigation in this case, one thing is plain as a pikestaff. The chief prosecutor of this court, Mr. Karim Khan, not only failed miserably to carry out his duties under the Rome Statute, requiring him to examine exonerating circumstances as well as incriminating, but he single-handedly contaminated it, so we alleged, by pursuing a one-track crusade with a view to a predetermined objective. Let me explain. Although the ICC officially authorized an investigation into the so-called Philippines situation in late 2021, it was deferred a few months later back to the Philippines for the official investigation to resume only in late 2023. But the real meat of the investigation into Count 1, relating to the activities of that fictitious construct, the Davao Death Squad, had effectively started way before then, with the sole objective of nailing Rodrigo Duterte. Indeed, all the way back in 2018, during its so-called preliminary examination, the prosecution had an individual who will be referred to as P1, handed to them on a silver platter. This P1 had been interviewed at an earlier date by none other than Chief Prosecutor Karim Khan, in his former capacity as a private lawyer, and the self-professed legal
nawala. Wait lang ha. Ito na.
preparation. And what was this information with which Karim Khan had helpfully provided her? A book on which the prosecution relies as evidence. A trashy, scurrilous item of pulp fiction entitled Duterte Harry. Your Honours, the picture on the front cover of that book says it all. It really does scream objectivity, doesn't it? I say that sarcastically, of course. Fortunately for us, the defence, the appeals chamber, has now disqualified Chief Prosecutor Karim Khan from this case. A welcome development as a matter of ethical propriety, but in our opinion, too late in the day to salvage the integrity of the investigation that he had supervised. An investigation in the course of which he concealed his former role as the victim's counsel, who had deemed our client a suspected murderer as far back as 2018 and right up to the very day before this pre-trial chamber issued its arrest warrant. Your Honours, over the next few days, we hope to convince you of the wholly insufficient nature of the evidence against Rodrigo Duterte. We will show you that the paltry number of speeches on which the prosecution rely do not manifest criminal intent. We will also convince you that as hard as they tried, the prosecution's investigators couldn't get even one of its criminal cooperating witnesses whose reliability is next to zero, to admit that they heard the former president, Rodrigo Duterte, give an order to kill at any time relevant to the charges, or with respect to any of the incidents. And we hope that when you conclude your deliberations, Your Honours, that you will dismiss these grievously misplaced and politically motivated charges. We will ask you to send Rodrigo Duterte back to his family, and we will ask you to give back to the Filipino people their Tatay Digong.
Galing. Ang husay. Napakahusay. Walang kasing husay. Oh, yung mga nagda-doubt kay Attorney Kaufman, ayan na, he tried everything. He's trying everything. Ako naman nakikita ko talaga ever since. He's trying everything. The problem here is ICC. Oh, this ICC people, wala pag-asa tong mga to. Formality lang to. Itong mga na to, hearing na to. Guilty si Pangulong Duterte dyan, no doubt. Ako, I have no doubt na in my mind, in my heart, na itong kay hearing na to sa ICC, mapapalabas pa yan si Pangulong Duterte. O siguro, ewan ko kung sino na lang pwedeng mag-pressure. Well, siguro, divine intervention para itong si Pangulong Duterte mapauwi sa atin. Pero katulad din naman na sinasabi ni Pangulong Duterte, let me die in peace here in my cell. Because, si Pangulong Duterte, pasensya na kayo alam ko ayaw nyo marinig to. Oh, we're just being open-minded and optimistic. Oh, pwede ka naman, Boss Dada, maging optimistic na mapauwi si Pangulong Duterte. False hope yun para sa akin. Oh, pwede naman siguro, pwede naman kayo magdasal. Prayers can move mountains. Kung magdasal-dasal kayo na marami tayong magdasal na makauwi siya. Go. Pero kailangan, wag din natin masyadong iset yung ating, expectations ng sobrang taas, because sabi nga nila, when you expect something, only half yung in-expect mo yung posible na makuha mo. Hindi mo talaga nakukuha lahat yun. Maniwala ka. Pagka sabi mo, gusto mo mapangasawa, ganito, ganyan, dahil mong standards, pero hindi mo nakukuha yun. Ang nakukuha mo, yung minsan nga, yung opposite pa nun. So ako, I'm just saying na si Pangulong Duterte is ready. Si Pangulong Duterte knows yung consequences or knew yung consequences ng mga gagawin niya. Alam niya yan. Sinasabi na rin naman niya yan. If they will arrest me, kung ibibigay ako ng bansa natin, wala akong magagawa. Kung katulad nung ginawa, kinidnap siya, sumama pa nga siya. Kaya nga siya sumama, sabi niya, baya mo. Sige na, nagawa ko na yung trabaho ko para sa Pilipinas. I'm old, I am sick, and hindi na ako magtatagal dito sa mundo. And ito na tayo, ready na ako, handa na ako, wala na akong pakialam. Problema nyo na yan, yung Pilipinas. Ganun. So, pasensya na kayo. Gustuhin ko man kayo sabihin na makakauwi si Pangulong Duterte dahil dito makakauwi. Posible yun. Pwede. At sana. Pero maganda, na lang din natin. Ipaglaban natin siya, o kaya bumawi tayo sa mga putang ina nagpadala sa kanya. Kasuhan nyo ng kasuhan dito sa Pilipinas yan. Tapos wag nating iboto yung mga yan. Pag nagsitakbo yan, yun yung greatest revenge na pwede natin gawin dito sa mga hayop na ito. Pero gusto ko lang sabihin sa inyo, huwag kayong mag-alala. Pangulong Duterte is at peace now. Yung tanggap niya yan. Kung ano man mangyari sa kanya diyan, tanggap niya yan. No matter how good Kaufman is, kung ganito katarantado yung ICC. The reason why dyan nga dinala sa ICC yan is alam nila na mananalo sila dyan. Umpisa pa lang yung kaso na to, alam na natin natalo talaga si Pangulong Duterte dito. So let's just set our just to set your expectations para hindi na kayo masaktan. Huwag kayo mag-alala, may Inday Sara pa, may Pulong pa, may Basti pa, marami pang mga Duterte. Babawi tayo. Okay?